There's this idea out there, one we've all bought into at some point, that the strongest person in the room is the one who feels the least, the one who shrugs off the hurt, doesn't flinch at rejection, and walks away without a second glance. We've been told that power looks like indifference. But let's get real. Acting like nothing bothers you is not strength, it's armor. And armor keeps people out. At some point, we all learn to put it on. Maybe someone told us we were too sensitive. Maybe we were laughed at when we showed excitement or crushed when we showed love. So we adapted. We learned to act like we didn't care. We decided that cool and unbothered was safer than honest and vulnerable. At some point in our lives, we all learn to put on armor. Not the kind made of steel or iron, but the kind that's woven from past experiences, from wounds we've carried, from moments when being open felt like a mistake. We don't wake up one day and decide, I'm going to shut the world out. It happens over time. It happens the first time we show our true feelings and someone laughs. It happens when we take a risk and get rejected. It happens when we love deeply, only to be left standing alone. So we build walls. We tell ourselves that if we don't care, we can't get hurt. If we act like nothing bothers us, then nothing will bother us. And for a little while it works. We feel untouchable. We convince ourselves that we're strong because we don't react, because we don't let people see the cracks. We become masters of the shrug, the eye roll, the casual, it's whatever. But here's the problem with armor. It's the more we wear it, the more exhausting it becomes. It keeps things out, but it also keeps us in. It numbs the pain, sure, but it also numbs the joy. It protects us from rejection, but it also robs us of connection. The same walls that keep us from being hurt are the ones that keep us from being seen, loved, and fully alive. And let's be real, underneath all that armor, we're still human. We still feel. We still care. We still lie awake at night thinking about the thing we said, the person who left, the moment we wish we could get back. We just don't let anyone see it. And that's the greatest irony. We think acting unbothered makes us strong, but real strength is the willingness to take the armor off, because the truth is, people don't connect with perfection. They connect with realness, and realness means feeling things. It means saying that hurt. It means admitting when we're scared, when we're hopeful, when we're trying. It means being brave enough to show up as we are, without the mask, without the armor, without the script that says we have to be untouchable to be respected. So what if we did something different? What if, instead of acting like nothing bothers us, we got curious about why things bother us? What if we allowed ourselves to feel without shame, to care without fear, to admit that being human is messy and complicated and sometimes really, really hard? Because I promise you this, the strongest people I know aren't the ones who act like they don't care. They're the ones who care deeply, love openly, and still choose to show up, armor off, heart open, ready to face whatever comes next. That's the kind of strength that changes everything. We live in a world that glorifies indifference. Everywhere we look, we're told that the people who win in life are the ones who don't care, the ones who walk away without looking back, the ones who don't get attached, who don't take things personally, who don't let anything or anyone affect them. We call them cool, unshakable, unbothered. And somewhere along the way, we started believing that this is what strength looks like. We hear it in phrases like, never let them see you sweat, play hard to get, if they don't text you back, act like you don't care, don't give people the satisfaction of knowing they hurt you. And so we buy into this myth. We learn to act like nothing touches us, like we're always in control, like we have no weaknesses. If someone disappoints us, we shrug it off. If we get rejected, we act like we never cared in the first place. If something excites us, we downplay it. because enthusiasm makes us look too eager, too vulnerable. But let's be honest, none of this actually makes us happy, because here's the truth. Indifference is not strength, it's disconnection. And disconnection isn't power, it's self-protection. We pretend we don't care, not because we actually don't, but because caring makes us vulnerable. And vulnerability, well, we've been taught that vulnerability is weakness, that if we open ourselves up, we're handing people a weapon they can use against us. But the cost of acting indifferent is steep. When we convince ourselves that nothing bothers us, we slowly start to feel less joy, less excitement, less connection. We keep people at arm's length. We don't celebrate too loudly because what if it doesn't last? We don't love too deeply because what if we lose them? We don't invest too much in anything because what if it doesn't work out? The problem is when we numb ourselves to pain, we also numb ourselves to joy. We lose the ability to fully engage with life, and before we know it, we're not just pretending to be indifferent, we actually start to feel indifferent. We stop experiencing the richness of life because we've conditioned ourselves to believe that caring too much is danger. But let me ask you this, when was the last time you felt truly alive? I mean, really alive. I bet it wasn't in a moment of indifference. It wasn't when you were acting detached or when you were playing it cool. It was probably a moment when you were all in, when you were laughing so hard you couldn't breathe, or when you let yourself cry because something mattered that much. It was probably when you took a risk, when you told someone you loved them without knowing if they'd say it back, when you did something that scared you but did it anyway. That's what real strength looks like. Not indifference, not pretending, but showing up fully, deeply, and unapologetically. So let's stop buying into the myth that caring less makes us stronger. The people who make the biggest impact, the ones who live the fullest lives, are not the ones who are indifferent. They are the ones who care, fiercely, deeply, and with their whole hearts. And if that makes us vulnerable, so be it. Because that's where real life begins. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that being cool is more important than being courageous. Think about it. From a young age, we're taught directly and indirectly that the people who seem untouchable, unbothered, and unaffected are the ones who have it all figured out. We see it in movies, in music, in the way social media glorifies a carefully curated version of life. We admire the people who never seem to care too much, who walk away without hesitation, who master the art of indifference. We equate coolness with control, and we equate control with power. And so we start performing. We suppress our emotions because we don't want to look too invested. We hold back our enthusiasm because we don't want to seem too eager. We pretend we don't care about relationships, friendships, or opportunities because we think wanting something too much makes us weak. But here's the thing, coolness is often just fear in disguise. It's easier to act like we don't care than to risk putting ourselves out there and getting rejected. It's easier to downplay our excitement than to face the possibility of disappointment. It's easier to avoid deep conversations than to admit we're struggling. But easier doesn't mean better. The truth is, being cool keeps us comfortable, but it doesn't help us grow. It keeps us at a safe distance from life. It makes us spectators instead of participants. And worst of all, it stops us from forming real connections. Because connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is the opposite of playing it cool. Let me ask you this, who are the people in your life that you trust the most? The ones who mean the most to you? Are they the ones who are always trying to act unbothered, who never open up, who refuse to show emotion? Or are they the ones who show up fully, honestly, and without pretense? Real strength doesn't come from being detached. It comes from being brave enough to care. Brave enough to say, I love you, even if you don't know if they'll say it back. Brave enough to say, I need help, even when you wish you didn't. Brave enough to be excited about something even if other people roll their eyes. Brave enough to show up as yourself fully and unapologetically, because at the end of the day, coolness fades. The people who build their lives around appearing untouchable often end up feeling isolated. The moments we remember, the relationships that matter, the experiences that shape us, those don't come from staying in control. They come from the times we let go, the times we chose courage over coolness. So the next time you catch yourself holding back, playing it safe, pretending something doesn't matter when it really does, ask yourself, am I being strong or am I just being scared? Because the world doesn't need more cool people, it needs more brave ones. We've been taught to see vulnerability as a weakness, as something to avoid at all costs. We equate it with failure, embarrassment, and rejection. We think if we let people see our fears, our insecurities, our struggles, they'll use them against us. So we do everything in our power to avoid being vulnerable. We build walls, we wear masks, we laugh things off that actually hurt. We keep conversations surface level. We bottle up our emotions and we convince ourselves that we're fine even when we're not. But here's the truth, vulnerability isn't weakness, vulnerability is courage. Think about it, what takes more strength? Pretending everything is okay when it's not, or admitting that you're struggling? Staying silent when something matters to you, or speaking up even though your voice shakes? Holding yourself back from love to avoid heartbreak, or choosing to love deeply knowing that loss is always a possibility? Every meaningful connection in life, friendship, love, trust, creativity, growth, requires vulnerability. It requires us to be seen, to take risks, to let people in. And yet so many of us avoid it because we're afraid of getting hurt. But avoiding vulnerability doesn't protect us, it isolates us. When we refuse to be vulnerable, we might feel safe, but we also feel alone. We miss out on the depth and beauty of real relationships. We miss out on the kind of moments that make life rich and meaningful. We miss out on the chance to be truly known and loved, not for the mask we wear, but for who we really are. Think about the most powerful moments in your life, the ones that shaped you, the ones you still carry in your heart. Were they moments of perfection and control, or were they moments of raw honesty? Maybe it was the time you finally told someone how you felt. Maybe it was the time you admitted you were scared but moved forward anyway. Maybe it was when you allowed yourself to break down in front of a friend, and instead of pushing you away, they pulled you closer. That's the power of vulnerability. It builds bridges where walls used to be. It allows people to connect not just on the surface, but in a way that truly matters. And here's the best part, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we give others permission to do the same. When we admit we don't have it all together, we create space for others to be honest about their own struggles. When we show up as our real, imperfect, messy selves, we invite deeper, more authentic relationships into our lives. So yes, vulnerability is scary, it's uncomfortable, it means stepping into uncertainty with no guarantees, but it's also the birthplace of love, joy, creativity, and connection. If we want to live fully, if we want to love deeply, if we want to experience real connection, then we have to be willing to be vulnerable. Because at the end of the day, pretending we don't care might make us look strong, but real strength, the kind that changes lives, comes from the courage to say, this is me, the real me, and I am enough. We're told that if we just work hard enough, look good enough, say the right things, and never make mistakes, then we'll be worthy of success, of love, of belonging. We learn to measure our value by how flawless we appear. So we polish our image, we filter our stories, we try to control how the world sees us. But here's the problem, perfection is a lie. It's a moving target that never stops shifting. No matter how much we achieve, how much we fix, or how much we try to control, it's never enough. There will always be another level of success we haven't reached, another flaw we think we need to hide, another reason to believe we're still not quite worthy. And worst of all, this obsession with perfection keeps us from the one thing we actually need: connection. Because the truth is, people don't connect with perfect, they connect with real. Think about the people you feel closest to, the ones you trust, the ones you turn to when life gets hard. Are they the ones who always seem polished and put together, who never let you see them struggle? Or are they the ones who are honest, who let you see their mess, who make you feel safe to be exactly who you are? Perfection creates distance. It makes people feel like they have to measure up, like they have to prove themselves worthy of our time and attention. But vulnerability, the willingness to show up as we really are, that's what builds real relationships. That's what creates trust. We don't fall in love with someone because they're flawless. We fall in love with the way they laugh uncontrollably, with the stories of their mistakes, with the quirks that make them them. We don't admire people because they're perfect. We admire them because they're brave enough to be real, to admit when they're struggling, to share their fears and failures, to remind us that we're not alone in our own imperfections. So why do we keep trying to be perfect? Why do we keep hiding our flaws when the very thing we crave, deep, meaningful connection, requires us to be seen? Maybe it's time to let go. Maybe it's time to stop chasing an impossible standard and start embracing who we are. Maybe it's time to stop worrying about looking like we have it all together and start focusing on showing up for the people who matter. Because at the end of the day, the moments we remember, the ones that shape our lives, aren't the ones where we were perfect. They're the ones where we were real. The ones where we laughed until we cried, where we admitted we were scared, where we let someone see us exactly as we are and they chose to stay. Perfection is exhausting, but connection is what makes life worth living. So let's choose connection. Let's choose honesty. Let's choose to be seen fully, imperfectly, and beautifully human, because in the end, that's what truly matters. We've been told that strength means never breaking, that it means pushing through pain without acknowledging it, handling everything alone, never showing fear, never asking for help. We've been taught that to be strong is to be untouchable, unbothered, unaffected, immune to heartbreak, rejection, or failure. And so we build walls. We suppress our emotions. We pretend we don't care, even when we do. We hide our struggles behind smiles and "I'm fine," and it is what it is. We take pride in our ability to hold it all together no matter what life throws at us. But let me ask you, is that really strength? Because if strength means shutting ourselves off from feeling, if it means pretending we're okay when we're drowning, if it means walking through life alone just to prove that we can, then what's the point? What if we've been measuring strength all wrong? What if real strength isn't about being invincible, but about being honest? What if strength looks like saying, "I'm struggling and I need help," instead of suffering in silence? What if it looks like choosing to trust people even when you've been let down before? What if it looks like feeling deeply instead of numbing out? Because the strongest people aren't the ones who feel nothing. They're the ones who feel everything and keep showing up anyway. Real strength is the ability to say, "This is hard, but I'm not giving up." It's the courage to keep loving even when you've been hurt. It's the willingness to be vulnerable even when it's uncomfortable. It's allowing yourself to grieve, to cry, to feel pain, not as a sign of weakness, but as proof that you care. It's reaching out for support, knowing that admitting you need help doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Strength is not pretending. It's not keeping everything bottled up just to prove that you can. It's not isolating yourself so no one sees you struggle. Strength is choosing connection over pride. It's allowing yourself to be seen fully, honestly, and without shame. So let's redefine what it means to be strong, not as people who never fall, but as people who rise again and again. Not as people who never feel, but as people who let themselves be alive in every sense of the word. Not as people who hide their pain, but as people who walk through it with courage, knowing that healing comes when we stop pretending we don't need it. Because real strength isn't about looking tough. It's about being real. For too long, we've been told that strength looks like indifference, that power comes from keeping our emotions in check, that the safest way to move through life is with armor so thick that nothing can touch us. But what has that really given us? Loneliness? Disconnection? A life where we feel like we're constantly performing instead of actually living? The truth is, acting like nothing bothers us doesn't make us stronger. It makes us smaller. It shrinks our ability to love, to trust, to experience joy. It keeps us from fully showing up for ourselves, for our relationships, for the moments that actually matter. Real strength isn't about being untouchable. It's about being brave enough to be touched, brave enough to care even when it's scary, brave enough to admit when we're struggling even when we wish we weren't, brave enough to drop the mask, take off the armor, and say, this is me, the real me. Because at the end of the day, what we all want, what we all need, isn't perfection. It's knowing that we don't have to walk through life alone, that we don't have to pretend we're fine when we're not, that we are worthy just as we are. So let's stop glorifying coolness over courage, perfection over presence, detachment over depth. Let's stop performing and start living. Because the strongest thing we can do, the bravest, most powerful thing, is to show up fully, love deeply, and let ourselves be seen.